I took a week off, but it wasn't intentional. I just got super busy.
Everything bothers him.
He's unbothered.
He calls it unbothered, but that's what's cute because everything bothers him. He's bothered. I'm a botherina.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Unbothered by Thai Rivera. That's right, it's Unbothered by Thai Rivera. I'm your host, Thai Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. All right, we're going to start the same way we do every time. We're going to start by summoning the spirit of Snoopy Bijou. Life is going much better. Things are going much better. I've been super busy though, and I have just been making myself really do things that in a lot of cases I would procrastinate about. And I wouldn't say that everything I went through with Bijou was like a good thing, that I'm happy it happened. But I do very much believe in always trying to find the benefits and the good things from anything that happens to you. And that means absolutely anything. And a lot of people get mad at me for that because there's times where I guess maybe I should be more of a victim or kind of, and it really plays out with other people because I try not to be completely unsympathetic or whatever to what people are going through. But at the same time, I kind of try to encourage people if they ask for my help. If nobody asks me for anything, then I'm fine. I won't say anything. I'm not a person who offers unsolicited advice usually. Um, but when it comes to like people talking to me about different things they're dealing with, if I had dealt with anything that's similar, I will tell them the way that I deal with things, which is always to see what the lesson is, always see what you can improve on. Excuse me, from having lived through that or having had that happen. And the lesson that I've learned, that I've really taken away the most from my situation with little Snoopy Bijou, was that really it's going to sound cheesy and cliche, but that tomorrow isn't promised. And so everything that I should be doing and that I usually put off doing, like I can do it tomorrow or I can do it later, I've really started to get better about that. And I'm not going to lie to you guys and be like, this version of Rome was built in a day. It hasn't been like that. It really was or has been a process of me just getting better and talking to myself like my mom would talk to me when I was a kid. Which my mom, some people don't get it when I talk about her. Like they think that maybe she was a mean lady or whatever. And I had a strict upbringing, like up until a certain age. You know, it got very loose once I got older. But when I was young, I did have a strict upbringing, and my mom has always had a funny way of talking to me. And I don't at all consider it to be, abusive or any of the things people think. I know my mom loves me very much. Like, I do not question my parents' love for me ever. I mean, like, there's times when I look back on when I was younger and I know that they maybe didn't, I don't want to say didn't do things right, but it's the older you get, the more you, I guess, sympathize with your parents, or the more you see how, like, because I think about my parents and I think about like my age at different points, and then them being their age when they were dealing with me, like what age they were. And it's like, I am much older than my parents were when I was born. And so obviously my whole lifespan, has been, much different than theirs or the way that I've lived my life. And so I don't have any judgment or feelings towards my parents in a negative way. And I do like have, like, I think I kind of have sometimes a little bit of what they call toxic positivity, but I don't know, because I feel like there's got to be a point where that's all you remember is the good stuff, because if not, you will drive yourself crazy just thinking about terrible things that happen or bad things that happen or times that you weren't getting along or, because with my parents, I definitely had some rough patches with them. It's not like we just were lovey-dovey all the way through. I mean, I always knew they loved me and I always knew I loved them. But there were times where we definitely did not like each other. That is 100% what the deal was with me and my parents. And I do mean did not like each other because I was a bit out of control at a certain point. And it took me a long time to even get myself to be somewhat normal. And there's people that think that now at this age I'm still acting out in certain ways with the way that I deal with certain people, but on that I don't have any questions about my behavior. I'm just very no nonsense, and I had to do certain things in order to free myself from certain situations. And I know some people will never understand that because some people have never been able to live that way. Some people have always had to watch what they say to a boss or watch what they say to, their coworkers. And I just have not seen things that way in my professional life because what happens with a person like me, and you see it happening all the time at all the comedy clubs. I'm not going to single out any one comedy club right now, even though I could. But I would say it happens at every comedy club where sometimes the management or the bookers will give you just enough to keep you there. And you're not necessarily thriving, and you're not necessarily growing, and you're not necessarily getting ahead in any way. But you're at least making lateral moves. And it's like I've seen people spend their entire careers just making literally lateral moves where it's just like, oh, yeah, you made it to that side. Now you made it back over to that side. Now you're back over on that side again. And really never getting anywhere. And I quit doing the road at a point, which I might go back to the road. I haven't decided when I'm going to go back to the road. I'm sure I will at some point. But right now I'm, creating so much and there's so many projects that I'm working on. And I have been doing a bit more of comedy coaching. So that's another thing that can pay really well when I actually want to do it. But for me to really coach somebody when it comes to stand up, I have to really feel like they're serious. And I'm not going to necessarily crack the whip on them. That's not the way I do things. But there is a certain kind of work ethic that I need to see in order for me to really be interested. Because it's like some people look at comedy as a hobby, and that's great if that's the way they look at it. But if they're not really trying to get ahead or figure some stuff out, then there's not really a lot that I can do for them because the only way that I know to do stand up really is by going out and doing it. So we can write and we can practice your stuff and you can work on your delivery with me and all that stuff is great. Don't get me wrong. All of it is very important. So we do that too. But if they're not able to go out and actually try the stuff we're working on out at a mic, then I don't really know what to tell them because that's the only way you can really figure out what you're doing and figure out your timing. So anyway, boring stuff as far as that part goes, if you're not a comedian. But my point is, so I've started doing some of that again. And hit me up. Hit me up if you want to work on your stand up, but I'm not going to lie to you. It's not super expensive, but it's not cheap either. So, it is what it is, and I have to make it so it's worth my time at the same time. So, there's that. But if you can't afford comedy classes or you don't do comedy, you can always hit me with the super thanks, or you can join my Patreon, or you can join my member section of YouTube, or maybe you can Venmo me, Thai Rivera -comedy. Whatever you want to do, you do. If you don't have it in your budget to do anything, when it comes to that stuff, I'm the most non-judgmental guy in the world because I get it. Sometimes you got it and sometimes you don't. And sometimes you got it, but you need it for something else. So it's like, yeah, I got it, but you ain't getting it. It's what it is, you know, and I get that too. And also that's a good thing about the way that I was raised was I was never raised to judge people on that kind of stuff, you know? Like I get it. I know that I have people that watch my channel from all categories. Some people that are doing really well and some people that are just getting by. And to the people that are just getting by, I will tell you, I offer sincere prayers and hope that things do get better for you very soon if you're going through a hard time. Like there was a person in the chat the other day that was saying that, you know, they're barely scraping by right now, and they were asking me not to paywall my stuff because I was thinking about putting this on the member section or possibly putting it on Patreon only. And I get you. And so I'm not going to do that because I do have to keep people like you in mind. And I know that some of my most hardcore supporters just don't have it like that sometimes. And so I don't want to make it so you have to not be able to watch me because I feel, especially like, one, God is good to me, you know, so there's that. But there's also the fact that I really am grateful to you guys for getting me through that situation with Bijou, and for the longtime botherinas, my old school bottom floor botherinas, as I call them. You guys have seen me through so many things, through being engaged, through the moves, through everything that I've done. Some of you have been around that long. And so I really don't have an interest in making it so you have to pay in order to consume any of my content, to tell you the truth. The stuff that does get put behind the paywall is usually just unedited versions of the stuff that I post publicly. And that's just because some people don't like the beeps or whatever. But sometimes I don't have time to do 2 edits just because I will literally be getting things out like this. Like today I put out a video, and that video I didn't get out until after 12, you know, noon. And I had wanted it to be out earlier, but I was just up editing all night, editing that video all night. And so I didn't get it out as early as I wanted to. And, you know, like I was saying, I know that, you know, some people have not ever been in a position where they've been able to tell anybody to, you know, take a hike. I keep it so I can still be monetized. I watch my language. But I know that some people have not ever been in that position. And there's times that I've done it that I haven't been in that position, to tell you the truth, where I've been like right after, like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to have to scramble because I wasn't planning on doing that. But I still don't consider it to be a part of impulse control or anything, because I just realized at certain points that I'm never going to get anything different or anything better if I just continue to settle. And sometimes the only way to do that is to completely burn everything around you. And that sounds counterintuitive to some people, but I believe in the if you love something, set it free type mentality. And so if the people that claim to have loved me throughout the years that I had to let go of because they weren't doing things the way that I needed them to do them, then that wasn't meant to be. We really weren't meant to be friends if that's what it was. You know, if something like that, especially because for anybody that really knows the situations, which would be me and the other people that have dealt with these situations. Give me just a second. I have a little bit of an emergency. Sorry about that. I had a quick situation I had to take care of, and it was one of those things that I had to take care of right now. Technically, I should be making food. It's 1:21 in the morning, and usually I like to do this with no edits, but sometimes there's just stuff that I have to do, and I don't want to get into the habit of not recording Unbothered. Last week I wasn't able to do it, but where I was going with all that is between me and the people that I've had problems with, if you want to say I've had problems with, or I called out, or however you want to say it, everybody that knows those situations from the inside, like me and those people, knows that I wasn't just flying off the handle. I wasn't just being weird. I didn't just flip out of nowhere. And technically, I didn't even flip out the way that, you could flip out in those situations if you had been truly unhinged. It's two things going on. One, I use almost everything that happens in my life as content. So there's that. And also, legitimately, things were going kind of left with those people or from those people. And I wanted to have complete freedom. Like a couple weeks ago, I did a video about Joe Rogan's special. And some people would think that that came from like a hater perspective or something like that. No, that's kind of why I did everything I did, was because I didn't like that I was being creatively stifled. And I don't like to be creatively stifled even to the smallest degree. Like there was a time when I was dating a guy and he would get mad at me because every once in a while I'd say something silly regarding like celebrity guys or that kind of stuff. People that I don't know, people that I'll probably never meet in my life, but you never know because sometimes I do meet celebrities and, excuse me, and that'll just be kind of random sometimes. And so but I hate being creatively stifled in any way. And one of the times that I think of where it like sticks out in my head when I knew that I wanted to kind of separate from the life that I was living in that way was when I was talking to Red Band, and I don't know if you guys know who Natasha Leggero is, but she's a pretty well-known comic, and I've always liked Natasha. I could have opinions about her stand-up if I wanted to, but she's really she she does better than she did when we were first starting out. That's what I'll say. But I don't, and see, I say things like that, and sometimes people get mad at me and they think I'm being shady, but I'm really not. That's the way I see comedy. Even with myself, there's times where I have great sets and people would congratulate me, and in my head, I can tell you everything I did wrong. And so if I'm that way with myself, what makes you think I wouldn't be like that with everybody around me or a lot of what I see? A lot of times I don't see things, but then people also forget that a lot of these people that they think that I'm hating on and that they try to cape for, it's like, I know these people and these people would never talk to you. These people would be more likely to talk to me again than they would to talk to you a first time. And that's just 100% what it is. Because whether or not anybody wants to admit it, I am good at what I do. That's why everybody knows me. That's why people would talk to me and work me in the first place, was because everybody knows that I'm good at what I do. Some people don't like that I can be a little bit of a loose cannon. If I don't like something or I get tired of something, I'll burn everything down like I did last time. I've done that in several cities. But the thing is, like, people will get mad at me in the comments and be like, you're just a hater and so and so. And I'm like, do you know that person would never talk to you anyway? Do you know that I will respond to your comments even though you'll be saying shady stuff to me? And yeah, I may say something shady back, but at the same time, at least I'll respond to you. Go talk to any of the people that you're trying to cape for right now. Go try to get a hold of them. You will not even get in their vicinity. And sometimes people will be like, I know this person. And it's like, do you really? Would they really know who you are? Because I would be willing to bet that they don't. Because if you really knew them, you would know not to talk to me this way because it's not warranted. I have opinions about stand-up because I do stand-up. So what I was trying to get at was, there was a time where I was in the green room of Sunset Strip here in Austin. And it was on Red Band's night, which is, let me make sure that's straight, which is Thursday night. That's when we would do Secret Show. That's when they do Secret Show. And I was pretty much always on Secret Show. There were a couple weeks here and there where I wasn't, but for the most part, I was always on Secret Show. And so what happened was, it was right after Natasha Leggero took off her shirt at the Hollywood Improv. And that made TMZ because Bert Kreischer always takes his shirt off. and Natasha Leggero was following him. So when he called Natasha Leggero up, she took her shirt off when she got on stage and, really took her shirt off. Like had her boobs out. And I joked with Red Band that I thought about making a video about it where I was going to say that Natasha Leggero took off her top 20 years too late. And to me, that's just a funny thing because Natasha is a very beautiful girl and she's always been a beautiful girl. But she has to be 40 and 40 something, who knows, and who cares, really. It's not about that in a way, but in a way it kind of is, because Natasha, like I said, has always been beautiful, but obviously 20 years ago, everybody that's beautiful was even more beautiful 20 years ago in most cases. I know some people do age like fine wine. I know I probably look better now than I did. Well, I don't know about that. Let's see. What would I have been 20 years ago? Yeah, no. But anyway, but I realized that I look good for my age. And so, and so does Natasha. And so for me, it's like when I'm living in this world and I'm hanging out with these comics that in a lot of cases I really do like and I really do respect and I've known for a lot of years, but then they don't have a sense of humor about themselves, or they wouldn't have a sense of humor about themselves, then it gets to me like, well, what are we doing, you guys? Because I mentioned on Twitter not too long ago that people will hit me up every once in a while and tell me that, I'm being talked about on certain podcasts. I don't even listen to the podcast to see what it is people are saying about me. One, I don't care what people are saying about me. And two, the things that people think I would be upset about, I do not care about. Like, there was a podcast that Jamar Neighbors did at a point, and this was several years ago. I want to say maybe 7-8 years ago, or 6 or 7 years ago, something like that. And so people were telling me, oh, Jamar was making fun of you on this podcast. And I've been friends with Jamar Neighbors since he first started doing stand-up. And obviously 6 years ago was newer in our friendship or whatever, but we've always had such a good relationship. So I was like, I know Jamar wouldn't say anything bad about me. And so I ended up hearing what it was. And he was just telling stories about when we were at open mics and some of the times that I would lose it on people. And he quoted a couple of things and he did his impression of my voice and stuff like that. And for me, I was very flattered by it. I thought it was fun. There was a time when Tim Dillon was talking about Arizona in a negative way. And if you guys ever heard that episode, he was talking about how it's a race to the bottom and how stupid people are in Arizona, and people are bugging him to go have Indian fry bread. And he's sure it's fine, but it's like, what kind of person asks you to have Indian fry bread? And I was the person that kept asking him to have Indian fry bread. But I did not care, and I am from Arizona. So when he's saying it's a race to the bottom of who could be the most stupid and stuff like that, you think I couldn't take the opportunity to be like, Tim Dillon was talking about me on it. And no, I didn't feel like that at all. I thought it was fun. I thought it was funny. I laughed really hard at it because nothing he said about Arizona or the people from Arizona was at all inaccurate in my experience being a person from Arizona, including myself. So if I'm not getting mad about people talking about me or about where I'm from or about my people, then why is it I'm supposed to tiptoe around everybody else's feelings? Why is it I'm supposed to watch what I say? I thought Joe Rogan's special was terrible. I made a whole a whole video about it. For me, it's all very technical, though. And yeah, I talk about the dynamics because the dynamics do matter. And I'm going to do more reviews about different comics specials, especially the ones I know, because like Kim Congdon, I'm going to do a review of her special still. I just haven't yet, but I'm not going to come at it from an angry perspective. I'm going to talk very honestly about what my situation has been with her and why it is I think that it was bad the way it is, because I haven't seen all of it, but what I have seen of it is not good. And so maybe it'll surprise me because I'm going to watch it in real time as I'm recording the video about it. So I'm going to be doing, it's going to be a time consuming process because people don't realize how long it takes for me to edit those things. Yeah, the watching it takes whatever it takes to watch it and record it. And, that probably, if it's an hour or 30 minutes, it'll take me probably about double whatever it is to watch it and record it at the same time, maybe even just a little over that. And so if it's a half hour, probably about an hour and a half to 2 hours is what it's going to take for me to record it. Then it takes forever for me to edit it because I got to drop in their part, my part. It's like it is a lot of work as far as that goes on the editing. And so, but I know the dynamics of why things aren't necessarily going the best for a lot of those people. Like with Rogan, I just talked about the fact that, he has a lot of people around him that are afraid to tell him the truth. Like nobody wants to stop the gravy train and nobody wants to upset the apple cart. So when you're in a situation like that, you're not going to get honest feedback. People aren't going to tell you, yeah, this isn't the best. This isn't tight enough. It's just not, you're screaming the whole time, which right now I'm being kind of loud, but it is what it is. I'm not recording a comedy special. But it's like you're screaming the whole time. And it's not just me that has this point of view. And when I watch somebody's special for the first time, I will watch it in a very honest way. If I'm like, because I wanted to watch Rogan's special just to see if everything he's been saying on the podcast, because the problem that I have with the Rogan situation as far as his comedy goes, just take everything else out of it. Any other personal stuff or, the mothership stuff, any of that stuff, take that stuff out of it. The problem that I have with Rogan and stand-up is Rogan always talks like he's an authority on stand-up, but he's never been very good at just straight stand-up. Like, yeah, he's had specials that were better than the one that he put out most recently, for sure. And there are times that I've gotten laughs off of watching Rogan. I don't think he's a terrible stand-up. He's just not a great stand-up. And so if I end up recording a video about that and that's what I want to talk about, then I don't want anybody telling me why I can't talk about that, or if you do that, then you're not going to be welcome at the mothership. Okay, well then I won't be welcome at the mothership. I don't care. I'm not anxious to be anywhere lately except for home, and here I am. It's like this is all I care about is just being kind of chill and by myself. There are times where I go for days without talking to anybody outside of the functional things you need to talk to people for. Like as far as if I'm at the grocery store and the clerk asks me something, which I usually do, self-scan, self-checkout, I usually do that. And so it might be a minimal somebody asking me if I want to buy, a plastic bag for my groceries, or if I get cash back and I want change and I have to talk to a cashier for that. Like that kind of stuff is what I'll talk. The guy at the gym, I'll say hi to as I'm checking in at the gym. But some days those are literally the only conversations I have, and they're not even conversations. It's just like them being like, hey, how are you today? And me being like, doing good. How are you? And so it's like, that's the extent of my interaction with other people, sometimes for days, if not weeks at a time. Then I do this and I record my videos, but outside of that, I'm not having any human contact, and I'm fine with that. And even through the thing with Bijou, it's like I didn't have a lot of people around me, and there were people that were some people that would surprise you actually hit me up. That's why I tell people, like, these people you don't understand. You try to cape for them and you don't understand that in some cases, some of them have hit me up just to say like, hey, I know we had our whatever, or we have our whatever, however you want to put it, but I'm sorry to hear that happen to you. And to me, that kind of stuff in that way does matter, and I will be gracious about people reaching out to me that way. But at the same time, do I feel like I need that? No, I don't. At the same time, though, I will tell you that a few people that didn't hit me up really did surprise me, because those low enders were lucky I ever talked to them in the first place. So the fact that they had to have known that that was going on in my life and they did not at all reach out to me, it's very telling of why it was that they were pretending to be so close to me back then. But even that, I don't stay mad about, but I just won't deal with those people in the future. Because for the most part, I feel like most people, if they were to chat with me, I would be at least baseline cool with them. You know, like I said, there's a few people that I would not. And I've been very, I won't rehash those, but you know, after this happened with Bijou, there's a few more where I'm like, yeah, that doesn't really add up, that you wouldn't at least hit me up as much as you claimed to have liked me. And we never had anything between us where we had a falling out or we had any kind of argument. Technically, the last time I talked to those people, the ones that I'm thinking of, we had very pleasant interactions and we were being friends like we always supposedly had been. So to not get hit up by those people, that was a bit surprising and a bit telling, but like it's not anything that I'm going to wish them ill over or that I, you know, ever will get in their way of them trying to do anything if I ever find myself in a position where they need something that I could possibly negatively affect. I won't help them, but I won't negatively affect it. I won't throw salt in the game, as they would say back in the day. I won't do anything like that, but just, you know, that was very telling to me. But my point is, I don't need that stuff anyway. Like that's not what I operate off of. Like I, in a lot of cases, am self-contained, and when I'm not self-contained, my support system is really people that would be my family. That's who my real support system is. Like, you know, if I need to break down to another person, that's who I break down to. But I tried to keep that at a minimum too. There were a few times where I absolutely had to, but I really tried not to I try not to tax people as far as all that stuff goes. And I know that you're supposed to reach out and whatever, but I didn't, except for the one time that I talked about, I think even on this podcast, but if not, that one's behind the paywall. But there was a moment, and it was a literal moment where I thought, you know, that way, like a more dire way. But I quickly put that out of my head and got on with what I needed to be doing. And so, but yeah, if I were feeling that way, I would reach out to somebody, like seriously feeling that way and for a prolonged period, you know, but that wasn't where it was, you know, it just wasn't where my thinking was. And so, I'm happy being by myself, and I'm happy not having to be accountable for other people for the things that I say, because there's really nothing wrong with anything I'm saying, especially when you think of it in terms of the golden rule, you know, like I'm not saying things about people that I would have a problem with people saying about me. And do you think that some of these people aren't saying things about me, but just in a quiet way? Which to me, that's what would be the more destructive. Like if I make content, if I make a video, if I make a podcast, whatever I do, that's content. But when people are on the sneaks being like, well, you know, Ty's a little bit crazy and whatever else. And it's like, am I really? Because I, other than saying words, I haven't done anything crazy, you know? And it's not even like I'm doing anything like call to action or trying to like do anything that's truly diabolical or like what have I done? Just talked about situations in depth on my podcast. I mean, that's really the extent of what I've done. So when people act like, you know, oh, I've done these terrible things, I just let you know that I had feelings about certain things, and I wasn't just going to pretend that they didn't happen or these things weren't a thing. So, and there's one guy that's like really burning himself out right now. And his name I won't mention because one, you would not know it. I don't care how much of a comedy aficionado you are. You would not know this person's name. He's not even a comedian. Really, he's not. And he was trying to do stand up for a minute. And here's the worst thing about this guy. This guy doesn't even realize how dumb he is that when I originally met him in LA, even though he had this like nerdy delivery and he was doing terribly, everywhere I saw him, he was doing terribly. And again, this is just me talking technically. But he was doing terribly everywhere I would see him. But I could tell that he was a decent writer. And so he would get laughs off of me. Like I would actually laugh. And I'm not the kind of person that'll bully you at a comedy show if you're a comedian by laughing at things you say that aren't funny in order to make fun of you. That's not my style. That's not what I do. That's not even something that I would be proud of as, just a person. Like it's just not. I'm very direct. If I don't like somebody, I will walk out of the room and I won't make a scene about it, but just if I don't like you and I don't want to see you and I don't want to see what you're doing, I'll just quietly walk out. Like nobody's going to notice if I'm in the back of the room, which is usually where I am anyway, even if I'm really enjoying something. In a lot of cases, because I'm a comedian as well, I'm going to be in the back of the room. So I can casually slip out. I don't tell people like, oh, I hate this person and then walk out. I just leave for a minute. I'll go smoke a cigarette. That's very common for me to do. Me smoking a cigarette would never raise a flag for anybody that knows me. They'd just be like, yeah, he smokes all the time. So if I went outside to smoke a cigarette, nobody knows anything. Nobody thinks anything. So this person though, like it's like I never had anything against him. So one time he was having this roast and I was running this open mic. It was called the Liquid Zoo. If anybody's familiar with the Liquid Zoo, it's on like Sepulveda and Van Nuys, or Van Nuys and Sepulveda. I don't know how you say those streets. You know what I mean? How you like what order? But those are the streets, Sepulveda and Van Nuys, which is in Van Nuys. Van Nuys, California, obviously. And this mic that I used to run was a true, like when I was running it, that was right before the pimps and the girls left because they cleaned up that area. But there was a moment when I was first starting to do that show, that mic, because my friend Gail was the bartender there. I've always been good friends with Gail. We're still friends to this day. At that time, she was doing stand-up. She's not really doing stand-up right now, but Gail is a really fun, really beautiful girl and really great spirit, really just a good person. And we were really good friends. And somehow I ended up hosting that mic. And I used to call myself the zookeeper because it was called the Liquid Zoo. And so this guy, because we're at an open mic, and a lot of you may not know this, but usually you don't give people intros at an open mic, and usually people don't request intros at an open mic. It's very rare, and if you do give an intro at open mic, it's usually because somebody big dropped in and you want to hype up the audience because, they've been sitting through this open mic. And in LA, that happens more often than people would guess. Well, maybe people would guess because there's so much industry in LA, or there was at that time. And so, and everybody knew that if you're a real comic and you're busy, which that's why people don't understand, like sometimes at open mics, will just drop people in that aren't signed up before them, and they'll be like, you bumped me for so-and-so. And it's like, yeah, because so-and-so is working on a TV show right now where he's writing for 8 to 10 hours a day. And so if he slips out to do an open mic, he also has a family, and I know that, and he slips out to do an open mic, and it happens to be my mic, and I know he's just either got an itch because he really wants to try something out, or he's getting ready to go on the road and he needs just a quick minute to try this stuff. then naturally I'm going to just put them up right away. And part of the trade-off for that is I get to say, so-and-so from this TV show just dropped in. And, the audience gets like, woohoo, we're getting to see, we already saw a million open micers. Now we get to see a guy that we know from TV. And they'll rock the house in some cases, or they'll just do something that's fun that they're working on. And the audience will get hyped about the fact they got to see them, and it breathes a new life into the show. So anyway, but usually people, I don't know why my nose is itching right now, but it is. And it's not like booger nose. It's like just outside of my nose is itching. And so this guy, he asked me, he said, I'm having a roast this week, or this weekend, and can you announce that my roast is going to be at such and such, and Graham Elwood is going to be there, which Graham Elwood, I think he's very funny. I remember he used to have this TV show. It was like a game show that I used to watch. I think it was on Game Show Network, but that was before I ever did comedy. So he was one of the people that I was excited to actually see in real life and meet when I first got to see him. But this was after I had already met him. I'm not friends with him. I don't know him like that. I just got to perform with him on a show, and I was excited about it back in the day. And I still think he's funny, even though I haven't seen him in a long time. But he was like, Graham Elwood's going to be on the roast, and then he named a couple other names, and the other names were not at all known comics. And when I host a mic or a show, I will say silly things, and I expect the other comedians to get it and understand that I'm not truly being insulting with them. And so when I had to announce this comedian, I said, your next comedian is having a roast for his birthday this weekend at such and such. I was like, Graham Elwood. The guests are going to be Graham Elwood, and I named the other guest, and I was like, sounds like a real Who's That of comedy. And the audience, which was all comics too, it's not like it was a mic. And so there were, some of the pimps and their girls there, but we didn't have like a traditional audience. And I don't even know why he wanted me to announce it. I get it, but at the same time, it's like, nobody from here is going to go there. It's just not going to happen. It's not that kind of room. But I did it, and I made it fun by saying that, and people laughed. And little did I know that he ended up being bitter about that for the rest of his life, because, that was a long time ago. It was when I was still in LA and hosting the Liquid Zoo. So that was quite a while ago. That had to be like 2008, maybe even before that, 2007. I would have to ask Gail, but it was probably like 2007, 2008, something like that, maybe even a little before. So how many years ago is that now? And you're still holding on to this? It's 2024 now, and you're still holding on to the fact, because if you guys didn't see it on my Instagram, that's the same person that ended up saying, how have you not killed yourself yet? On my, he sent me that in DM. And the last time I had any interaction with him, because there was a time where he tried to come for me when I was living in Phoenix, because he had moved to Phoenix. And it was, again, about some stuff that it's like, why are you even still mad? Like, why do you care so much about an interaction that we had back in LA when I thought that I was doing, I knew I was doing what a host of a comedy show is supposed to do. Like, it was me being fun was what it was. So how is it you're so upset even to this day? And this person is so unhinged that he has hit up because what happened was he sent that, and then that, if you guys didn't know the chronology of that, literally he sent that message, which I'm not saying he knew, so I'm not even trying to add that layer to it, because I really have no feelings about it. I really have no feelings about it even if he did know. But the reason that I posted it was because things that would be considered bullying to other people, that doesn't apply for me. Nobody's ever going to accept that I'm being bullied, no matter what happens. And different things have legitimately happened that could be considered bullying, and nobody will ever say that I got bullied. Nobody will ever say that I was the victim of any kind of wrongdoing ever, because people have this idea about me that you can do anything that you want to me and it's completely okay because I got in an argument with one of their friends back in 2007 about whatever, or I said something on Instagram or Facebook that they didn't like, or I vote for Donald Trump, so I should expect people to be like this. And legitimately, these are the things that people say about when anything happens to me like this. But I did share it because, like I said, I don't think he knew the timing of it. But literally when he sent me that message was when I was having my last night with Bijou. And so and I didn't even notice it came in because, I went to request because we're not friends on Instagram. And technically I'd already blocked him on Instagram and Facebook. So he must have made another account. But whatever the deal is, it's like I ended up seeing that the next day after I had to take Bijou to the vet to have her put down. And so if there's any time that I felt like, well, this is just inconsequential, and why is this person even sending this to me all these years later? Are you still thinking about that? And he sent it at something ridiculous like 4:56 a.m. because, it has the timestamp on it on the DM. And it's not the kind of thing where I want people to go after him or anything like that. But I did tag him so he could take full credit for it. Because I think when you do things like that, if you're that comfortable with it, then I'm not comfortable sharing it for you, because nobody's going to see it in my DMs. And you're not ever going to just cop to that as you're acting morally superior. So I just went ahead and shared that. And I don't regret it, and I didn't even feel any way about it other than just being like, here's this, everybody, just so you guys see the way that people will talk to me even when I haven't done anything to them. Because even when I did that at the Liquid Zoo, I really did not have any malice or ill intent with that. I really was just having fun, and being that it was a roast, the intro I gave was in the style of a roast, and I'm not at all passive aggressive. So it's not like I didn't like this guy and I wanted to make fun of him about his roast. I really was just having fun, being silly, being the host of an open mic, being the host of a comedy show. And I did used to make the Liquid Zoo fun, and it could be miserable, but because I'm so used to that element, if I've got, a couple of pimps or a pimp and their girls, that's a place I'm going to thrive, because and anybody will tell you that, because, there were people that were afraid of them, afraid of the guys, the pimps. But I didn't feel any particular way about that. I would never disrespect them, though. I also know how to, manage myself in that world, or, conduct myself. So it wasn't like, and they don't want any heat anyway. They're trying to make money. They're not trying to start anything. If they have to, they will. That's one thing I will tell you about most pimps. I've met some soft pimps before, though. Yeah, I met one that got slapped on his front porch. I was like, nobody's respecting you as a pimp anymore. But, but yeah, so, I mean, like, when that's kind of the world that I know, or part of the world that I know, I was able to make it fun for people and let the other comics relax, and so that's what he's been mad about all these years. Really, that's what it comes down to. And every once in a while, I'd be in Phoenix and I'd get into it with somebody on Facebook, or I'd have some kind of incident like I've talked about on this podcast before. A couple episodes back, I talked about that. And he would insert himself and just be like, you're a terrible person and you're blah, blah. And it's like, what have I ever done? Because even the people that don't like me would not say that I'm a terrible person. Like, the thing that people point out about me is I talk a lot of shit. That's what people talk about with me. The thing with me is I don't have a filter for a lot of things. Like, that's what people say about me. But no, I don't owe anybody money. I'm not a terrible person. It's not like I'm one of those people where it's like you can say, like, oh, well, he didn't pay me for this gig that I did, or, he ruined my wedding, or, like any of the stuff that would be like terrible people things. I have cut friends off, which I've been very open about, even outside of the public ones, just where I've realized that people were, in my opinion, taking more away from my life than they were adding. I've done that. And so some people think that I'm not a good person because of that, but welcome to life with me when it comes to that. And I don't care when people do that with me. Like, you think nobody has ever just stopped talking to me out of nowhere? A lot of people have just stopped talking to me out of nowhere. Sometimes it had nothing to do with anything going wrong. We just grew apart. And when we see each other, we'll say hi or whatever. But, I've had situations where, you know, like Boneseye would be an example of that. Like, everybody knows for a while there, I was hanging out with Boneseye all the time. Like, we were hanging out at his place, at my place. It was never anything like romantic or anything like that. Boneseye is straight. I knew his girlfriend. She's cool. Well, she was cool with me. I don't know. I don't know her outside of being with Boneseye, but like, she was a nice girl, and but it was never anything like that. But we did hang out a lot. We were actual friends, and I really do like Boneseye. I really do love him. There was a time where my car, when, I don't know if you guys remember that, or if you guys even knew that happened, but there was a time where I was going to a movie and I didn't check the weather. I didn't know that it was hailing out that way. And I still kick myself about that, because if I had just stayed in my side of town, or if I had, but who thinks to check the weather really, I mean, now living in Texas, I know, but in Arizona, we usually don't have stuff like that. Hail once in a while. Yeah, there's been a few hailstorms, but it's not anything like here. It's more normal to have. I don't know what it is about Austin. I do like that part about it though, but there's also a garage here, so it's not like, I'm have to be in the elements. But if I just stayed home that night, or stayed in my side of town, or downtown, which is where I should have been, because usually I would go to Mothership on that, because it was like a Monday night, and I would decide to do something out of my regular and go to a movie with the guys, and then it turned out to hail, and that hail literally, it really, like, it busted out the windshield, like, not completely busted it out, but like where the hail almost went through the windshield, like scary, like right near where my head would be. And there were a couple of them in the front, and then in the back. Well, when that happened, I had to wait for my appointment with, not Safelite. I ended up going with somebody else, but first Safelite had me on this 2-week thing, because it happened in that whole area. This was like North Austin, and so there were a lot of people that had gotten their windshields busted out. So Safelite was making a killing, and they were backed up. And the first thing that Boneseye did for me was he went ahead and secured the back windshield for me, because the back windshield was so bad that there was a part that was even exposed in the corner where you could just push it out, And so we got cardboard boxes from the mothership, and then we borrowed Gorilla Tape from Michael Ridley. And literally, I did nothing but, I don't even think I held a flashlight. Because we did it right on 6th Street, or he did it right on 6th Street. But Boneseye went in, and because, he's got the brain of an engineer, his family, there's a couple engineers in his family. He's a very smart guy, and great with the leather work too, but just really, really smart guy. And so he went ahead and secured my back window for me. And then there was, I had like one day where I was going to be in town before I had to go on the road, and he let me use his truck, and he has a really nice truck. It's like one of the Jeep pickup types, and it's really nice. It's brand new. And he was like, hey, I need to be working tomorrow, at my place. I've got some projects that I need to take care of. I do not need my car. So if you just want to borrow the truck, you can use it for the whole day. And so it was right before I went to Skankfest. That's what it was. And so, um, and at that point, we had just started hanging out. It wasn't even like we had been friends for a long time at that point. He didn't know me. He didn't know if I was irresponsible and which, like, if I borrow somebody's stuff, especially like that, like something that's like, I was very appreciative, and I had so much stuff that I had to get done that I did take him up on it 100%. I didn't say no at all. I did borrow his truck, but I also filled it up with gas. But when I was done, which is what you're supposed to do. A lot of people don't do that. I don't know why. But yeah, and so I was very appreciative to him for that, but I'm very careful with people's stuff, and I just used it the amount that I actually needed to use it, because I don't like having the responsibility of somebody else's stuff. Like I said, I'll be very careful, but at the same time, I'm like, a little bit nervous, you know what I mean? This isn't mine. If I mess up my stuff, I mess up my stuff. But if I mess up somebody else's stuff, I have to take care of it like right away, and I can't like be that guy. And so, yeah, and so I was, but we hung out a lot. And then there was just a point where we stopped hanging out, and I don't have any feelings about it. I don't think anything about it, negative or whatever. I mentioned people not hitting me up about my dog. He didn't hit me up, but like, also, I don't know if he would know, and I don't like, he's not one of the people I was talking about, is what I'm trying to be clear about. But, but yeah, so it's not always what people think when they think like, there must have been some huge thing or whatever. For me, sometimes it's just a matter of my life moved on, their life moved on, both our lives moved on, and then we stopped hanging out, and that's fine. All of it's fine. And I say all this because I guess I just don't understand when people that have really had no real relationship with me like obsess about me, because I would not ever think about this guy. If he hadn't sent me that message, I probably would have never thought about him again in my life, unless somebody just randomly brought him up, which they wouldn't, because he's never done stand up like that. Like, I'm not even being insulting when I say he's not a comedian. He did some open mics for a while, but he's not a comedian. He doesn't do stand up. So I can't imagine a situation in which somebody would bring him up just randomly. But if they did, then yeah, I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. But yeah, I wouldn't be thinking about him in any way. So anyway, so he sent me that, and then like I posted it, and then 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, he starts trying to argue with people on the thread, and then he hits up one of my friends' private message, and then my friend decided to share that. And then I, blocked him because he was just too unhinged. And so I just blocked him. And he'd also tried to argue with me from like a burner account. And I right away knew it was him. And I just blocked him. And then another friend hit me up and was like, yeah, that guy tried to argue with me from a burner account. And I was like, was it? And I told him what I remembered of the name. And he was like, yeah, that's exactly who it was. And so, so I put it together, and I was like, I knew it was him. I just wasn't 100% until, my other friend said that he got, harassed by him too, and he realized it was his burner. So we figured that out. But like, we were both laughing. We were just like, whatever, so stupid, But the last couple of days, I found out that he hit up two more of my friends, like in the last couple of days, which all this, like, it's like you don't understand that you're in a one-sided fight with somebody that does not care about you and does not think about you. And like that's the kind of stuff that he sent my friend. Was he sent one of my friends like, do you actually think Thai Rivera is a good person? And it's like, I don't think anybody that knows me on any kind of casual level has to be concerned about what kind of person I am. Because, like, what do you mean a good person? Because I'm not doing anything other than just by myself and creating content almost all the time. So, what is it that anybody would think that I'm doing that would make me a bad person? I don't interact with people enough to really be, well, I did use my AAA to help that lady and her kids get back in their car when they were locked out of their car and they didn't know how they were going to get home. They locked the keys in the car and I had to wait quite a while for that. And then I did not too long ago at HEB, there was this handicapped couple and the man was severely handicapped, like, and the lady was, I think, worried about him getting rolled because what she had to do was because he was so handicapped. How handicapped was he? But he was so handicapped that she had to put out the ramp, and somebody had parked too close to her car in the other handicap space, and I was walking by, and so she had to back her car out, and since he has all the groceries on his cart, so a few are on hers, she had to like get off her cart because they both had the mobility scooters, but she had to get off hers and then with all the groceries on it, and then his had quite a few groceries on it too, and so she was worried about him possibly getting robbed, or somebody stealing their groceries or whatever because they're in the parking lot. And this is a couple weeks back, and I was walking by, and I don't remember how I overheard her saying it, but I was just like, yeah, go do what you have to do, because she needed to back the truck up, and I was like, I'll stand with him, go do what you have to do. And I know, like, looking at me with, yeah, I sometimes forget when I'm being a good Samaritan what I look like, and so people are like, that family was a little bit afraid of me too when I offered, because they technically approached me with the lady and her kids. She had locked herself out of her car, and she had one of her kids ask me, because she didn't speak English and her kids spoke English, and she had one of her kids ask me if I could, if I knew how to get into a car, like, unlock a car or whatever. And I was like, I don't. And I don't even have anything that would do that, like a Slim Jim or anything. I don't know how to do that. And I don't own anything that would help me do that or help you do that if you know how to do it. And so, at first I was like, no, I'm sorry. And then, because I was just sitting there smoking a cigarette after the gym. And then I thought about it and I was like, I could call my AAA for them. And so they had walked a little bit of a ways away. And so I shouted out to them because, I stay out of people's space because I don't, I, I'm kind of weird about that in the way that I try to be aware that not everybody's going to be a person like me. And so you should keep your guard up with everybody, and people should keep a safe distance from you. And so I respect that. Like, that's something I stay very aware of, which sounds weird, but I really do stay very aware of that. Like, I don't want to teach her or her kids, more importantly, that it's okay to let anybody, not even just a person that looks like me, but anybody get too close to you, no matter what they're offering to do. Like, it's okay to keep a distance. If you're really trying to help me, then you care about my comfort, you'll stay over there. You don't need to get all in here. And so I just shouted to them. I was like, did you guys end up getting it figured out? And then the little girl was like, no. And they were young kids, she was like, no. And then I was like, well, tell your mom that I'll call somebody. I'll call AAA and have them do it. And then I asked them, what the description of the car was and stuff like that. And so then I had to sit there and wait because once AAA gets there, I got to give them my ID and my AAA card so that they can log it the way they need to or whatever. And so I waited for them to get it, like for the AAA guy to fully open their car. And once they were ready to go, then I was like, you know. And so, yeah, and then there's like, I tip the guy at 7-Eleven regularly because I feel like 7-Eleven is a rough job, and I'm usually there during graveyard when it's not like I'm always there, but I'm there enough, and so I tip him a couple bucks on top of whatever I buy so that, he can buy himself a soda or something like that. I'm not like going crazy and peeling off bills or whatever, but I give him a couple extra dollars. And so, so yeah, I don't really know what I would be doing that I would be such a terrible person other than I said a couple of things that people don't like. And so, whatever the case, stay unbothered.